have always found that talk is vastly overrated as a way to enrich the mind or even to pass the time. And I do myself prefer to spend a quiet afternoon and evening on a peaceful stretch of river with a rod and reel, listening to the water gurgle over the rocks, hearing the wind rustle in the trees. You do that long enough, say a lifetime, and you begin to get the message. As Eb Wendicott, a buddy of mine from the old days, used to say to me, "You know, Wiley, true fishing is all in the mind." And I would tell him, "Eb, if that's the case, then what the hell are we going to do for supper?" And that was about the extent of our talking for an entire day out in the boat. As I recall, we caught ourselves a mess of beautiful bass for that dinner. Eb couldn't fish worth a darn. He had a better chance of hooking an old boot, but by golly, he could skin and fillet a bass like Mandrake the Magician, and then conjure some awful tasty tricks with it in a skillet, if you gave him a hot fire and a cold beer for inspiration. And consequently, he was an invaluable addition on any fishing expedition. If you are the master of a critical skill, like fishing or cooking, your chances improve that you will get on in this world. Talking is not something I consider a skill. Politicians talk, and that's enough said. I believe that the individual who speculated that talk is cheap considerably overestimated its value. I tend to throw in my lot with the person who said, make that wrote, that silence is golden. Now that is true. After you listen to it for a good long time, you can hear it has a pure, deep, golden tone to it. A kind of musical quality, I would say, reminiscent of the water on the rocks and the wind in the trees. But it takes time and a trained ear to hear it. I was listening to that golden note on one beautiful day while fishing with the forest, meadow, and stream for my companions. I hadn't caught a thing, and I had just about give up trying. I think I perhaps had reached that stage Eb had been referring to, where fishing is all in your mind, because the fish, for reasons of their own, won't have nothing to do with you. They're happy as it is without your worm. And fishing is a different activity altogether without the cooperation of the fish. So you persist and hearken to that golden tone, and your mind, freed of its constraints, gives way to fantasy. I was beginning to dream of hooking a monster catfish I'd been chasing for years, known in these parts as Old Ding Dang. He was a legend, so famous that part of me was itching to catch him, and a part of me was hoping he'd steer clear and continue his reign as king of the stream. Either way, it was a pleasure just to think about him. But my happiness was shattered by the approach of a four-wheel, a new one, driven by a young feller I know by the name of Ace Williams. I reckoned that my day of fishing had come to an end, and I reckoned right. "Wiley, there's a call for you at the station," Ace hollered out to me. He is a ranger at the nearby Dander Forest Preserve. "Take a message for me, will you, Ace?" I shouted back. "Can't you see I'm busy?" "Don't look like you caught a thing to me," said Ace, poking his nose in my creel. "That's why I'm busy," I said. "Now go on and get." "It was Harp Elwha calling, Wiley," said Ace. "I thought you'd want to know. Harp is in charge of a fancy museum in the big city. His real name is Guillaume, but we do him a favor and all call him Harp. I play poker with him on occasion, and I've been fishing with him a time or two. He can't fish or cook, but he is a man who knows how to keep his mouth shut, which makes him a tolerable companion." "You tell him I was fishing?" I said to Ace. "Yep, that's what I told him, Wiley," said Ace. "And what did he say?" "Said he knew you was fishing, said he needed to talk to you anyway, Wiley. Said he was sorry to bother you, but it was real important, and he wondered if the fish could wait." "Well, dadgum," I said, reeling in my line. "That Harp is a clever one, all right. He'd know that I might be impatient, but the fish will always wait. This had better be all-fired, end-of-the-world, crown of creation important. Importance, I have learned over the years, is a matter of perspective. Most people think that the news is what's important, but short of a natural disaster with lives in peril, I believe in fishing. Harp was mighty agitated when I finally got to see him. "Wiley, doggone it, what took you so long?" he said. "I was fishing, Harp," I said. "You pulled me right off in the stream." "Well, I'm sorry about that, but it couldn't be helped," he said. There's been a robbery here, Wiley, a big robbery. Didn't you hear about it? Ain't read nothing for days except the current on the river and the clouds up in the sky, I said. I missed out on all the big events of the day. Which is another one of the pleasures of a fishing trip, overlooked by some, what you don't have to think about. Come with me, Harp said, and he led me from his office out into the exhibition hall. His museum is a very impressive place if you like indoor spots, which I don't much. There's a bunch of statues around and paintings hung on a wall like trophy fish. Myself, I like to be around living things. A place like Harp's, no matter how they gussy it up, it always feels like a funeral parlor to me. It's quiet there, which is nice, but it's a different kind of quiet, hushed and respectful, like when somebody's died. We had an exhibit of rare jewels out alone, he told me. They haven't been displayed in public for centuries. It was quite a coup for us, and the rarest of them all was the red anemone. Have you ever heard of it? Can't say I have, Harp, I said. I don't follow jewels much. It's priceless, Wiley, as well as beautiful, or it was, said Harp. We had stopped before a display case. It was circled by a red velvet rope. Red velvet is another one of those funeral parlor touches. People say it's lush. I find it a mite chilling. Inside the case was a setting and a sign, the red anemone. There was nothing else inside the case. It was stolen 2 nights ago, Wiley, said Harp. We can't begin to imagine how it was done. We took every available precaution. We had the most sophisticated alarm system in the world installed here to protect these jewels. Where? I said. All around you, said Harp. When the museum closes, we turn it on. It is a network of laser beams that crisscrosses the entire floor area of this hall, as well as the walls and the ceiling. In addition, the floor is pressure sensitive. Alarms would go off if an ant were near that case. We know. We tried it. On an ant? Okay, a large beetle. Make up your mind, Harp. Wiley, there is absolutely no way anybody could have entered this room and stolen that diamond. Not on the floor, not on the walls, or dropping down from the ceiling. It's not physically possible, but it's gone. You're certain the system is operational? Absolutely. We checked it 1,000 times, and there were no power outages or none. And we've got a backup system, a generator that would kick in immediately if anything did happen. I assumed you checked out your security personnel and all the staff, I said. Upside down, Wiley, Harp said. First thing we did. We put them all through the ringer. We're positive it was not an inside job. I said, because I could not think of anything else to say. Tell me more about this diamond, Harp. The red anemone. It's been owned by a succession of sheiks and rajas and pharaohs and kings down through the ages, he said. It is a notorious gemstone with a great trail of romance and stories attached to it. Kind of like old Ding Dang, I said. Somewhat, said Harp, but on a very different scale. That's what I meant about importance. I didn't bother quibbling about it, though. Who owns it now, I said. A Japanese bank. Uh-huh, I said. There's a particular legend connected with it, too, he said. You mean the one about how it's beautiful and deadly, I said, irresistible to anyone who sees it, and how harm eventually comes to its owner? You know about that, then, he said. I didn't, but that's the standard legend that goes with most of these notorious gems. You can't be a famous jewel unless you're hooked up with some type of doom or curse. It goes with the glitter, I guess. I don't think there's any curse connected to old Ding Dang, but I might have to look into that just in case. I wouldn't want to go hooking into anything I was not prepared to handle. Wiley, we've been over this hall with microscopes floor to ceiling, and we don't have a single clue. No fingerprints, no sign of entry. It's like that diamond sprouted wings and flew away. Well, it didn't do that, Harp, I said. I don't know, he said, rubbing the back of his neck and frowning. It may as well have, Wiley. There's no way anyone could ever sell that diamond. It's too well known. The person who stole it is either going to cut it up into hundreds of chips, which would destroy its value, or they're going to hide it in a secret collection, where no one will ever see it again. Settle down, Harp, I said. The man was starting to shake. I can't, Wiley, he said. That diamond was priceless. I'm the curator of this show, so I'm responsible for it. The bank, it will ruin us if we can't find that diamond. Wiley, I'm at my wit's end. I admit that sounded bad, but I knew Harp pretty well, and he was never known for his wit, or his fishing, or his cooking either, so it didn't really take all that much to bring him to the end of it. Hated to pull you off the water the way I did, but I was sort of hoping, as a last resort, that you might have some idea on this, he said. Does anyone else know about this yet? I said. Harp shook his head. My best guess on that would be everybody in the world but you, Wiley, and we're running out of time. That's okay. One of Harp's drawbacks as a fisherman was he lacked the patience you need. These laser beams, Harp, I said, what sets them off? If anything transects a beam, the alarm goes off. Anything? Dust in the air? Cigarette smoke? No, that wouldn't do it. What if a fly would go through one of them? A fly? No, that wouldn't do it either. We adjust the system to allow for dust and flies. Otherwise they'd be going off all the time with false alarms. But a fly isn't going to steal a diamond, Wiley. What are you getting at? You're culprit, I said. You think it was a fly? A pitiful look on Harp's face, like he'd be willing to believe it was a fly, if I said it was, made me laugh. If it come to swallowing bait, Harp would bite on most anything right now. Easy, Harp, I said. I had to keep in mind that he was at his wit's end, a lonely outpost. Now about that diamond, is there another one like it in the world? No, it was unique, one of a kind, Harp said. I meant some other rock, equally valuable, Harp. Well, sure, there's the Coral Reef diamond. Who owns that? A German insurance company. Think you could get them to loan it to you? After this? Yes. Tell them you need a replacement in your show while you find the first stone. I guess I could talk them into it, Wiley, but why? A little fishing expedition, Harp. You think the same person who stole the red anemone would try for the Coral Reef? What do you think? I think that's some mighty expensive bait, Wiley. I know it, Harp, but nothing else will do the trick. Besides, you said yourself that the first one was priceless. If we lose the next one, that's only priceless times 2. I could see that Harp was struggling to work up the math on that. In order to help him out, I said, besides, all this publicity can only boost your show. A big heist like this, it's another exciting chapter in the saga of the red anemone. And you just wait till we get it back. Then everybody and his 4th cousin's going to have to see that stone. Harp thought about that, then made arrangements to get the Coral Reef, and security was twice as tight as before, because the Germans sent along a crew of their own. I didn't bother telling them, but they could have made the inside one solid laser beam, and it wouldn't have done no good. Security, when you think about it, is a little like fishing, a state of mind. I made arrangements to bed down just outside the exhibition hall and wait for the thief. I was kind of looking forward to seeing him. It had been a number of years since we'd last met, and he was good, no question about that. He was darn near as good as me. He weren't in no hurry. I didn't expect him to be. A couple of weeks went by. Harp began to look like a cantaloupe was stuck in his throat. But I wasn't worried. I knew this feller would have to have that rock. I even knew how he'd get into the building, up through the sewers, water being his natural element. I reckon it was a little after 3 on a Sunday morning when I heard him. I'm used to getting up early. Some of the best fishing is hard to get to places, so you got to do your getting before the sun comes up, or you lose valuable time on the stream. I paid no attention to where he might be. I kept my eyes glued to that Coral Reef diamond. It was a lovely hunk of stone, glittering like blue sparks even in the near darkness. All of a sudden it jerked and started to fly straight up in the air. I had to act quick. I jumped up, held my rod steady, my thumb on the reel. I pulled it back and snapped it forward, using only my wrist. I was watching nothing but that diamond. I was using a vinyl plastic plug, weighted with just a touch of lead. I whipped the tip of the rod forward and released the line with my thumb, then clipped it off when I knew it was right. The plug darted through the air, seemed to pass a hair in front of the flying diamond, like I had missed. Then it whipped around in a tight circle, pulling my line tight, and the jewel jerked to a stop in midair. I had full tension on my line. The Coral Reef diamond was floating at the end of it, trembling, flashing sparks of blue into the darkness, those security lasers shooting right through it. I knew I had snagged a big one. It was silent for a moment, and then I heard a soft sigh. Damn it, Wiley, you old bottom-feeding varmint, is that you? a voice said. "It's me, all right," I said. "Been a long time, Rex." "Not near long enough," he said. "What do we do now, you think?" "I think this is where I'm supposed to tell you that the building is surrounded and you should give yourself up," I said. "Is that the truth?" "Some of it." "What about my rights?" he said. "You got 'em," I said. "No," he said. "Aren't you supposed to read 'em to me?" "I can't do that, Rex. It's too doggone dark in here and I ain't got my reading glasses on me." "You use specs now, Wiley?" he said. "Only for reading," I said. "You give up?" "I guess I do," he said. "Well, come on out where I can see you," I said. "I don't want to shoot no shadow." He stepped out into the light. Rex Kenshaw, about the best fisherman with a rod and reel I ever saw. Fly fishing is all the rage now, and Rex had dropped out of sight for some time, but I remember when he used to give exhibitions of trick casting. He could do things with that gear you would swear could not be done. Taking wallets out of pockets, along with loose change and pens, was just about beneath him. Once, on a $1,000 bet, I seen him pluck a contact lens out of a man's eye from over 30 feet, and the man didn't know it was gone. Rex used some kind of special adhesive on his plug. He swore he could steal the teeth out of a man's mouth. False, I reckon he meant. Although I never saw him do it myself, I would not bet against him if he put the money down. All he had to do was pace off the distance so he'd know how much line he needed, and Rex could hit anything bang on. He could nail mosquitoes in a pitch-black room, just aiming at the sound. I knew right away he had to be the one who'd swipe the rock. Besides being an expert caster, Rex was a geologist by trade. Those jewels set out on show like that had to be mighty tempting to a man like him. "How are you, Rex?" I said to him. "I'm disappointed," he said. "I heard you was off fishing." "I was," I said. "Friend called me in on this." "My bad luck," he said. "Why'd you do it, Rex?" I said, even though I thought I knew. "Because it was there," he said. Just as I thought. The difficulty, the prize catch, it was like me and old Ding Dang. He was supposed to be 50 years old and 100 pounds on a scale, but no one knew for sure. I'd been tossing lures at him for years. He'd snacked on many a worm of mine, but I'd never put a hook in him. Just like he could read my thoughts, Rex said, "You ever catch old Ding Dang?" "Not yet," I said. "Wiley," he said, "take it from me, you don't really want to." I knew what he meant about that, too. The one that gets away is the one that keeps you going. I put my gun in its holster. "What are you doing, Wiley?" Rex said. "Give me that other stone you took and be on your way," I said. "What?" "Just give it to me, Rex, and hurry up about it. We ain't got all night." Rex opened his tackle box, took out a bag, and handed it to me. I took it, didn't bother to check inside. "You gonna let me go?" he said. "I got all I need right here," I said, meaning the 2 jewels. I figured if Harp had his rocks, he'd survive the mystery of where they'd been. "I owe you one, Wiley," he said. "2, I said, "but who's counting? Stay out of mischief, Rex." "See you around," he said, and he cut his line and slipped back into the darkness. "No, you won't," I said to myself. Rex is one heck of a fisherman, but he talks too much. Kind of boastful. If I hadn't caught him red-handed, he'd have tripped himself up in a month or 2, bragging on his catch, showing off those diamonds in some truck stop or bar. The curse of the red anemone would have nailed him for sure. He couldn't resist taking it, nor bragging on it either. My daddy told me years ago, "Wiley, let your fish do your talking for you." And in all the years since he said that, I have never heard a fish say a word. No wonder I like him so much. I gave the diamonds to Harp, and he was glad to see him. He just shook his head, gave me a hug, and then a check, written to the account of a Japanese bank. I don't know how much a yen is worth, but I had bagged myself a pile of them. And speaking of yens, I had a powerful one, so I headed back to my stream to see if I could establish some line of communication with old Ding Dang. Not so much to catch him as to hear if he had anything to say.